Imagine yourself in a battlefield. You hear gunshots in the background, you see people running, and you see houses on fire. And you look into the sky and you see a nuclear bomb falling down and it explodes and you die. And then imagine yourself waking up from being dead. This is the future of video games and where they're going. Video games will be virtual reality in the future. And we'll be able to play with our senses and feel like we are actually in the game. But instead of actually dying, we'll actually respawn and just start over at some checkpoint. Video games have changed drastically in the last 40 years, and continues to grow today. People living 40 years ago would not be able to imagine the power that video games have today. I used to play video games all the time whenever I was younger. I used to have N64, Sega Genesis, and currently I have a PlayStation 4 right now. I believe video games will progress to unimaginable standards to people living in the modern world today. Video games have really become multi-dimensional, and to actually understand the evolution of video games, we'll actually have to go back to the beginning, which is the Magnavox Odyssey, which was created by Ralph Baer in 1972. According to Electronic Gaming Monthly, Ralph Baer first kicked off his idea to make a at-home game console while working for Sanders Associates, which is a defense contractor company during the time. Electronic Gaming Monthly also says that the Magnavox is the result of the evolution of 7 units. So this means that Ralph Baer actually created multiple units before he released the final unit to the general public. First generation games, just like the Magnavox Odyssey, were very simple. They were built to just run a few games, and they couldn't run multi-dimensional games. Revisiting Atari 260 says that programmers face exotic issues such as slow frequency, low memory, and slow processors. Games also had little or no sound during the time, just like the first TVs were. They didn't have the technology to incorporate this just yet. These video games only play really simple games such as ping pong, tennis, and volleyball. Atari 2600 was another console released around the same time as the Magnavox Odyssey, and it only actually had 3.6 megahertz. And megahertz is the speed of the processor which runs the video game console. And compared to today, that's extremely slow, because today's game consoles will have around 1 million times faster than 3.6 megahertz. So in the 1980s was when video game consoles really saw a big leap. This is when cartridges for video games were actually made. So instead of just one console only being able to play 3 games, you could switch out the cartridges and play many different games at a time for one console. This is also when video games started to see color and sound, and also different types of video games such as fighting, RPG, and platform types of games. Now, RPG game is a role-playing game. It follows a storyline. And so this is different because the first video games you had to kind of wait for something to happen before something else happens. While in the storyline, what you do right now could change the outcome of the future. So during this time, Sega and Nintendo really dominated the video game console sales. Mario, Zelda, and Pac-Man were some of the games that they created, and these are actually really big games that are still known to the world today, and a lot of people actually still play these games as emulators on their consoles or online. And an emulator is just something that resembles or is similar to the gaming console that can be able to run the games. Just for comparison, video game consoles during the 1980s and 1970s only had 40 transistors compared to 20 million transistors today. And a transistor is a conducting device that amplifies and carries the electronic signal in transfers the power around. So the more electronic signals you can transfer around in power, the more capability your gaming console can have, and the more you can do with it. So modern games today are extremely more technological than before. Today, modern consoles are really multi-dimensional. You can not only play video games, but you can also watch movies, listen to music, surf the internet, and according to TechSpot.com, 3D graphics really turned an dull industry into a light and magic show. So it made video games more appealing to the eye, and it made more people want to play video games. So most of the people I know today actually use their gaming consoles not only to play video games. Most of them actually use it to watch applications, and just as Netflix or Hulu, to actually watch TV and use it for different purposes other than playing video games. So the future of video games will actually be virtual reality. And one example of a video game console that's going to be developed for virtual reality is Oculus Rift. So for Oculus Rift, it was actually created to play with the senses. Peter Robin at Wired Magazine says that Oculus Rift hacks your visual cortex. As far as the brain is concerned, there's no difference between virtual reality and reality. So video game consoles has changed from low pixels to multi-dimensional systems. Earlier there was limited supply type of games. Now there is any game imaginable. And in the future, consoles will be able to be alternate realities, and you'll be able to play almost any video game that you would like in your own senses.